All right. Well, the journey from sonship to fatherhood. Oh man, what am I going to share? My wife and I, we raised 4 kids, multiple doxies, and I would say this: when you're fathering, you move out of more of a short-term thought process. I think sons growing up, like, you generally have kind of a short-term mindset. You're not looking to the long-term dividends are a little harder to come by. I mean, not that all kids are like that, but most of them are, right? Most kids think short-term. Fathers, I think, good fathers think long-term. They understand that even though in the immediate there may need to be some like immediate behavioral modifications that have to take place, they don't leave it there. You find a way to have conversations afterwards, even if it's days afterwards. You find ways to have those conversations that turn that moment into something of a opportunity for the child to choose better character, to learn, to grow, to promote their identity and their purpose. And that's another thing that fathers generally go after. They're not just trying to get something done. They're not trying to accomplish a task for their child or with their child, or they're trying to help their child become who they were designed to be. They good fathers, I think, they look long term. Sorry, the preacher of me just wants to get all fired up. But I say that, but it's true. But I'm also a storyteller, so it's hard for me sometimes to just give little things. But long term, fathers think long term. One of the things that comes to mind when I think that way is that a good father has the ability to ask forgiveness, because again, the long-term impact of that is really vital. To have a father come to you and say, "Listen, son or daughter, the way I approached something, or what I said, or how I said it, I missed the mark of good character. I missed the mark of thinking long term. I became arrogant in that moment. I was," and I say this out of experience. I have said to my children, because I was a pastor for many, many years. I haven't been for the last couple, but I was a pastor for many, many years, and there is a level of expectation that a lot of people put on your children, and sometimes, honestly, most of the time I protected them from that, but sometimes I had the expectation, and I would react rather than respond. I would react to a circumstance because I was embarrassed by their what they said or their behavior. And I had to apologize for that. And it was more than once. It might have been 2 or 3 times. And I also think good fathers ask their kids how they're doing. Not that I needed a job evaluation, but periodically I would ask each one, and I had to find the right time to do this, because you can't create serious moments all the time. You have to be, as a parent, you have to be willing, I think, to have the conversation at their convenience. So for me, that would be sometimes while they were playing video games, and some dads are like, you need to respect me and honor me, put that game down. I would ask them, like, I tried to recognize that they can think and do more than one thing at a time. And I would say, hey, can I talk to you while you play? And honestly, most of the time they would pause it and have the conversation. But if they didn't, I would ask them the questions. And periodically, and by that I mean, once, twice a year, I'd say, hey, so how am I doing? How am I doing? I especially ask this of my firstborn, because firstborns, man, they break you in all the time. Like, they're not only your firstborn, they're your first toddler, they're your first, whatever, preschooler, your first grader, your first high schooler. Like, they're the first all the time. So I would remind my firstborn of this. Like, I've never had a child your age before. Like, I don't know how to do this. I'm learning. But I want to do things well. I want to think long term. And where I missed that mark, I would apologize. And not just, hey, I'm sorry I don't do this right, but I would try to be as specific as possible. And sometimes that meant asking them specific questions, like, tell me how. I remember one time they told me I yelled too much, and I thought to myself, I don't yell at all. Then I was like, okay, I yell once in a while. They're like, no, you yell all the time. I'm like, no. And I wanted to show them, because I had 4 kids. They all agreed I yelled. I was like, I don't yell. Like, I get loud, but I don't yell. Like, yelling to me had this aspect of like being out of control. And I thought I was very much in control of the volume that I had to correct my children in the moment. Turns out from their perspective, that's the other thing, right? Another thing. I know I'm all over the place. But from their perspective, and that's the part, right? They're speaking from their perspective. So from their perspective, I yelled a lot, and I had to learn not to. And that was difficult, because I didn't think it was a problem till all of a sudden it was a problem, which was way after I had been yelling for a while. So I had to correct a pattern and ask forgiveness a lot after that, because I'd not mess up. From their perspective, I missed the mark. But what it does is it sets them up to understand that you are growing and learning all the time. And when you are a father and you still grow and learn, there's an authenticity to your conversations that allow them to see that your desire to grow and learn is a pattern that they always need to have, not only for themselves, but also in their relationship with God. So the relationship with God becomes impacted because your relationship with them becomes one of growth and learning, apologies, interaction, invitation to conversation, not just dictatorship, not just monologues, not just instructional confrontation, but you have this energy of interaction that not only brings your relationship with your children to life, but it brings the relationship that you have with God to life, because now they know, hey, listen, my dad is not claiming to be the end all of spirituality. My dad is still learning. My dad is still growing. My dad is still, like, even now I'm sorry. I'd be here way longer than 8 to 10 minutes. But it's important for them to get those patterns out of you while they observe you. I don't think, just a side note, I don't think there's a lot of biblical examples of good fathers. David's father, Jesse, clearly did not teach David how to be a father, right? He disowned him. And there's reasons for that. Noah was, his kids were righteous enough to get on the ark, but they had some issues. Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, Samuel, Eli. Like, my goodness, like, it's tough to find them. Joseph seems to be a good father, but there's not a lot about how he fathered. But you see his kids. David, bad dad, yikes. But Jesse taught him. I don't know. It's a journey. Have a ton of conversations. Don't be afraid to ask forgiveness. And don't pretend you know it all. And I think you're going to be great. I do. I really do. Reach out to me if you have more questions. Really, you guys are awesome.